When we were doing yesterday's video about the Air Force One, Lola and Bugs Bunnies for the Space Jam 2 movie, and I'll throw up those shoes from yesterday, I was talking through and I was thinking about today's video a lot, thinking about this Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner, I nearly said Bugs Bunny, Roadrunner mashup. And while I was kind of thinking about that, I was like, wow, there's an awful lot of hits on these LeBron 18 lows that aren't on those Air Force Ones. And it turned out those Air Force Ones really only had two hits. One was Bugs and Lola Bunny on the side of the swoosh, and the other was Bugs and Lola Bunny on the tongue branding, and that was it. And then when you look at this shoe today, it's an absolutely wicked shoe, but it's got tons of really wild details on it and discrete little hits and in-your-face hits and stuff like that. So I have a better appreciation for this shoe because of yesterday's shoe, and it was so sort of a little bit kind of like I was expecting more from the Air Force Ones, which helped raise up my expectations for these guys and be actually, you know what, that's a great looking shoe with a great story. So let's get into it and have a look at these guys. It's a Roadrunner versus Wile E. Coyote, and if you don't know anything about Space Jam and Space Jam 2, Michael Jordan starred in it. Of live action animation mashup film, must have been about 25 years ago, called Space Jam, with all the kind of regular Looney Tune characters, Bugs Bunny and all the characters from that roster. And then here LeBron James is kind of pulling that back again for Space Jam 2, and it's due to release mid-July, as are these shoes, yesterday's Air Force Ones and these LeBron 18 lows, and I'm pretty sure they're dropping all at the same time. The movie is hitting theaters exactly the same day that these shoes are hitting the stores, and of course I'm expecting there to have been some kind of tie-up between these shoes, that movie, and LeBron and the Lakers making a run at the NBA championship. Turns out they didn't quite make it this year, partly because of injuries, partly because of coronavirus, and partly just because they weren't good enough and they dropped out in the first round of the playoffs. So that whole kind of plan from Nike and Warner Brothers, I guess, and the Lakers to try and all sort of live off each other in their sort of different worlds as they're sort of pushing out there into the different worlds, kind of fell apart a little bit with the Lakers not making it to the finals of the playoffs. But that doesn't stop these shoes being epic, and I'm sure the movie's going to be awesome as well. So let's have a look at these guys, these LeBron 18 lows. First off, it's obvious that one shoe is different from the other, and that one's brown and the other one's blue. The brown one represents Wile E. Coyote. He's a coyote, he's a dog, for want of a better word, a brown furry creature. And then the blue one is the Roadrunner, which is a bird, blue feathered creature, and all the way through the two shoes there's some really neat little nods to Wile E. Coyote, who is basically always losing against the Roadrunner, who's always kind of winning but without even trying in a way. So what we're going to try and do is have a look at all the differences between the two shoes, but first I'll highlight just one tiny little commonality between the two shoes, which is the tongue branding at the top there. It says something like Team Tune or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it says up there, but it's a disc, and it's got the branding in there, and it's the same on both the left and the right shoes, but that's pretty much where the similarities end. So let's have a look at some of those differences between the two shoes. I'm going to start with the swooshes, and we'll start with Wile E. Coyote, and you'll see that his swoosh is in a sort of red colour with a black border around it, but the detailing on there looks like ropes to me, and usually what's happening in the Roadrunner cartoons and animations is Wile E. Coyote is trying to create all these different traps to try and catch the Roadrunner. I think this rope is talking about that. It's a nod towards one of those sort of challenges where Wile E. Coyote is trying to create a trap, and it usually has wood involved as well, like a crate or something like that, or a springboard or something, a wood effect on it, and we'll come back to that wood effect in a minute. But first I want to jump over to the lateral side swoosh on the blue Roadrunner side, and you can see instead of being that kind of trap rope feel that you get on the Wile E. Coyote side, on the Roadrunner side you've got this sort of it's like a smoke, kind of speed smoke. That's, the bird is shot off into the distance and left a trail of smoke behind, or debris behind, and that speed effect smoke is definitely what the lateral side swoosh looks like for the Roadrunner shoe on these guys. But going back to what I was saying about the wood for the Wile E. Coyote, there's a really neat little detail in the shoe that's very discreet, not easily seen, with a wood kind of finish, and hopefully I'll be able to zoom on the green screen here and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. It's something I don't think many people will be picking up on because they're looking at the major features features on the shoe and not realizing little things like these. But I knew to look for it because I was looking at the Road Runner and seeing that it's got a sort of cloud effect going on, that sort of speeding into the distance cloud effect again. You could see that on the Road Runner shoe, which hopefully you're looking at here on the green screen. So I knew to look for something special like that on the Wile Coyote one. So that's another difference between the two shoes. Now, a major difference comes on the insole. So instead of looking at this picture here, where you can see sort of into the inside of the shoes, we might as well look at this picture here, where you can actually see the insoles taken out. Thank you, whoever had the sense to do that. And you can see that there's a join in the concentric circles that look like a kind of target, or that Looney Tunes sort of background to their introduction sort of, what would you call it, graphic. But on the left and right shoes, you have Wile Coyote on one, and you have the Road Runner on the other. So it's cool having those different insoles on there, so that it gives you a feel of difference between the two shoes. But what it does is it sort of gives you a nod to something else, which is right here. The back of the tongues on both shoes have a really neat detail in that often what will happen is when Wile Coyote sets a trap, the trap will go off and he'll get caught in it himself instead of the Road Runner, and often he'll hold up a sign that's like, help me, or something like that, or oops, or something to that effect. So you see that on the back of the tongues on his one, and then on the other one you see the Road Runner himself, herself, themselves, blowing a raspberry, which is not unusual in the cartoon as well, to see the Road Runner blowing a raspberry at Wile Coyote after one of his traps has failed. But it's a very neat little part of the shoe. Those hidden sort of secret bits behind the tongues is a really nice touch on these guys. And another really nice touch is down on the air units, and you see on the Wile Coyote side it says something like yowie or something like that, which again is the sort of noise he would make when he's caught in one of his own traps. And the flip side on the Roadrunner side says beep beep, and often in the cartoons the Roadrunner would come up behind Wile Coyote, go beep beep, and scare Wile Coyote into his own trap. So it's a really nice little sort of touch on the shoe there. And then the final detail that I want to get to is one of my favorite, to be honest, is on the outsole. A very interesting sort of colorful outsole. It's got a gum sole feel to it, but the thing that we're really drawn into is in the forefoot. It's got a very big splat feel about that red section on the front end of the shoe, which definitely sort of fits the narrative of Wile Coyote getting caught in a trap. Often it would be something like an anvil falling from on high and crushing him, or something like that, or explosives going off and splattering him all over the place. But the splat effect on the front end of those outsoles on there is a really nice little detail and a great way for us to wrap up this video. So hopefully you guys have been able to follow me as I kind of jump between the two shoes and give you that contrast between the two, and you see the differences that are very, very obvious. I mean, there's some of them are right in your face. It's a brown shoe and a blue shoe. It's very, very obvious. But other things like the backs of the tongues, those little details like that, I think are unique, and that's what actually carries the shoe more than the big kind of in your face differences between the two. So two really neat shoes to go together with yesterday's Air Force Ones with Bugs and Lola Bunny, both of which coming together to give that Space Jam 2 film a little bit of a push into the sneaker world. So it's a great story, great shoe. I'm sure it's going to be an epic movie, one of the big movies of the summer, especially as people start going back to movie theaters again. Now the COVID restrictions are lifting worldwide little by little. Here in Japan, the COVID thing, we're about, I think, 25% vaccinated. I actually have my vaccination dates due late November, mid-August, I think, is when I'm going to get my shots. So we're getting there in Japan a bit later than everybody else in the world, but slowly but surely catching up just in time for the Olympics. For now though, it's time for me to wrap this video up, and thank you guys for checking out the content. And the only thing I get to do is this left to do is the same thing that I do at the end of every single video, which is just remind you that I do this every single day, and that means that you are guaranteed to see me tomorrow.